Toyotas are too darn expensive, or are they? That's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, because we have a lot of information, of course, on Toyota's current pricing, but we also want to talk a little bit about the potential for pricing on the new 2025 4Runner.
Yeah, you got that right. So cars, trucks, everything is expensive in 2024. There's no way around it. Good luck finding any car for under 20 grand now, but especially Toyota four-wheel drives have gotten very expensive. So I want to talk about what Toyota Tacoma has done from the previous gen to the new one, and what we think that the new 4Runner is going to do from the current gen to the new one as well.
Yeah, because we can compare directly 2023 Tacoma pricing to 2024. So at the very base level, Tacoma used to be $28,600 to start. That was 2023, but now for the 24 model, it's $31,500. And of course, they've changed the truck a lot. They've added a lot of features to it, but that's also a substantial increase in price.
And what we're noticing with the Tacoma lineup is the increase in price is pretty small on the base end, and then it balloons to this huge increase on the upper end. So at the base end, if you're looking like a standard SR, you're going to have a price difference of about $2,900 from the new gen to the previous gen. And what about the off-road spec?
Yeah, well, and that $2,900 isn't nothing, but then you move up to the off-road, which is one of the more popular models. And in 2023, that was $36,790. Now it's $41,800. So that's a $5,010 difference.
So pretty chunky price increase. And like you mentioned, Case, you do start to see improvements in technology. You start to get new feature implementation as well. So there is, at least according to Toyota, a justification for that price, new turbocharged engine. But we've gone from a $2,900 difference to a $5,000. And then what about the TRD Pro spec?
This is where it gets really wild, because in 2023, a Pro started at $48,035. A big increase from a TRD off-road, not an inexpensive truck. But now, for the 2024 model year, a TRD Pro starts at $63,900, and that's a $15,865 difference from the previous generation truck. Granted, that new Pro is a hybrid. It gets you more power. There's a lot of things that they've added to that truck, but still, 15 grand is pretty huge, almost 16 grand.
So what we're seeing is a really big price differentiation from the top trim to the bottom trim. I mean, we're looking at, it's actually interesting. The base model Tacoma is half the price of a TRD Pro.
Yeah.
You could get two base model Tacomas for the price of one TRD Pro. And you brought up a good point, right? Like that hybrid system does add a certain level of value. You've got power increases, right? You've got these new crazy seats that are supposed to keep you in place, which I'm skeptical about. And so there's a lot of difference, but what we're seeing, which is interesting, is like the Ranger lineup has also gotten more expensive, but it's pretty consistent in how much more it's gotten. So like a base Ranger to a loaded Ranger is now between $5,000 and $6,000 more expensive. And then the Raptor, you can't compare Raptor to Raptor because there was no previous Raptor in the States.
Yeah.
But a Raptor is about 58 grand, right? And that's pretty much with everything.
Yeah, when they start even more around 55, I think.
They're like 56. Like there's only a few options in there, but they're like 56 to 58-ish.
Yeah.
Ish. Before
one way or
markups.
another, you can get a Ranger Raptor for a lot less than one of the new TRD Pro or even the Trail Hunter models. And the Ranger pricing, how that's changed from 23 to 24 is a good comparison, because like the Tacoma, that is an all-new truck for this generation for the 2024 model year.
Yeah, and like I said, if you compare like base and the Lariat, it's like $5,200 to $6,200 difference if you compare apples to apples. Whereas the Tacoma pricing is like a $2,000 to like a $15,000 difference. We can't really compare, like I said, Ranger Raptors. But anyways, I digress. So what Toyota's doing is they're realizing people really want these upper end trucks, right?
Yeah.
And they're finding that people are really willing to pay a lot for those even in the mid-size category to buy those upper end trucks.
Yeah, but it's also, it's not to say that Toyota isn't price conscious to some extent, because of course the new Land Cruiser came out, and the base version of the new Land Cruiser is $55,950. Now that's not cheap by most people's standards, but compared to the previous Land Cruiser, it is a lot less expensive than the Land Cruiser used to be. So there is at least some movement toward trying to make some slightly more affordable vehicles. at least in some extent.
Yeah, that's true. But even with the Land Cruiser, we see some interesting trends where like a first edition, if you want one now, which is pretty shortly they're going to be arriving in customers' hands, that first edition is a $75,000 vehicle. So, I think Toyota knows their market really well. And they know that no one's buying the cheapest stuff, right? So they cut that price pretty low. A lot of people are buying in that mid-range of product. And then you also have quite a few people buying in that upper range that are willing to pay whatever for the loaded truck. And keep in mind, these are prices for MSRP before destination. So it's about $1,000 for destination. And then dealer markup could jack that price even higher.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's consistent with what we've seen with a lot of vehicles coming out that people are excited about, of course. But should we get over to the 4Runner pricing?
Yeah, so let's talk about where it's at right now for 2024.
Yeah, so currently the 2024 model starts at $40,705. And then, of course, you could spec it up to a TRD Off-Road that's going to be just over $44,000, and a TRD Pro is going to be $55,000. Now, if our existing pricing here, at least with the Tacoma, is anything to go off of, and it should be, because Tacoma and 4Runner have always had some shared components, and now in this new generation, even more so. But if we're going to base it off of that and base off the Tacoma pricing, then potentially the base could still be in that low $40,000 range for the 4Runner.
Well, if we just apply the difference that Tacoma had, we're going to be looking at like a $44,000 truck, right? Base.
Yeah.
Which is not out of this world. I think that's fairly reasonable, given a lot of the improvements of the new 4Runner. And then if you look at like a TRD Off-Road, if we had $5,000 on top of the current base price, you're going to be right around $50,000, like $49.50 for an off-road, which, that's kind of right about where like TRD Pro pricing is more or less on Tacoma, but you're still under what the current TRD Pro price for 4Runner is. But if we had $15,000 on top of the current Pro pricing, then we're looking at a $70,000 SUV.
Yeah, which puts it in competition with a lot of very high-performing vehicles, because this is a really competitive space. So $70,000 is going to be a big ask for a lot of people.
Yeah, once again,
if that's where it goes.
Yeah, none of these are official. You're right, but let's say, and I honestly think that's probably pretty on the market. I think that would make a lot of sense. A $70,000 4Runner, or thereabouts in the TRD Pro line. So you're going to be right up in like the depth of the Land Cruiser pricing.
Yeah.
So if it were you, knowing, neither of us have driven either of them.
No.
We're hopefully going to be getting a Land Cruiser here shortly at the office. But if you had $65,000 to spend, would you get a loaded 4Runner or a Land Cruiser? What do you think is more attractive to you?
Personally, I would lean 4Runner. I like the styling. I like the features that it's offering. But some of the features that you can get on different trim models, the Trail Hunter, really cool. So I like that spec of it. I would lean 4Runner. But it is interesting the fact that Toyota has two SUVs that are going to be in a very similar space. And then you even factor the GX in there, which is a bit more premium, but still a lot of vehicles that Toyota has in a very similar space. But what about you?
You're right. No, I mean, for me, the Land Cruiser name carries like a certain premium to it. I like the full-time four-wheel drive in the Land Cruiser and some other little bits. And, that's also, I mean, it used to be Land Cruiser was way up here and 4Runner was way down here. But now that Land Cruiser is also 2.4-liter hybrid, right? Like they're just so close to each other. I mean, I think if I'm paying $70,000 for one of these, I'm going for a Lexus GX.
Yeah.
Personally, right? That's the pickle with it. But even at $60,000, I'd probably get the Land Cruiser. I just like the styling a little more. It's a little bit less boy racer-ish than the 4Runner. But look, the fact of the matter is these things are getting expensive. I don't think we can say they're too expensive because people are still buying them.
Yeah.
The market has determined that people are buying these in still large numbers, at least for Tacoma.
And that is the point. I mean, we understand as much as anybody that the prices on these vehicles are hard to go with, because as a company, we're able to buy some of these vehicles and test them, and we're lucky to be able to do that. But us personally,
Sure.
I mean,
$5,000 Land Rover.
Yeah, both of us drive sub $10,000 Land Rover. So it is a lot of money for these vehicles, but at the same time, there are people that are either buying them or leasing them.
Yeah.
These manufacturers, they know what they're doing, and if none of these vehicles were selling, they wouldn't be building them.
And they'd lower the price, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, folks, we'd love to hear your input. What do you think of current Toyota pricing? Is it too high? Is it reasonable? Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, that's all for this video, and it's been Tommy and I. and we'll see you in the next.
Yeah, alltfl.com if you want to find more of our content. Thanks, guys.